Thank you so much for coming back to a new video of our story time. When Minecraft came out in 2011, I was used to games like Call of Duty, Battlefield, Hitman, and they offered incredible graphics. So in comparison, Minecraft wasn't appealing to me. Now fast forward 15 years later, I bought Minecraft and I played it only for 5 minutes. And let me say this, I lost track of time completely. So in this video, I will be reading some stories, reacting to them as usual, while trying to build my first ever real world in Minecraft. Let's start. Story number 1. Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my sister my late wife's wedding ring, even though she says it would mean more to her than to me? I'm a 34-year-old guy and my wife passed away a little over 2 years ago after a long battle with cancer. We were together for 11 years total and married for 6. Losing her is still the hardest thing I have ever experienced. And even though life has slowly started to move forward again, there are still moments where it hits me all over again. If I smell a certain soap or some stranger would pass by who wears the same cologne as my wife, all the memories and all the pain comes all at once. For the most part, I've learned how to live with the grief. It's not the overwhelming kind it used to be in the beginning. It's more like something that quietly exists in the background of my life now. Some days are easier than others, but I have accepted that it's probably always going to be there in some form. One of the few things I kept after she passed away was her wedding ring. The ring itself isn't anything extravagant. It's actually pretty simple, but it meant a lot to her. When we were originally looking for engagement in wedding rings years ago, every jewelry store kept pushing these massive diamonds that honestly looked ridiculous to both of us. She hated them. I still remember her standing in one store looking at this enormous ring and quietly leaning over to me and saying, "If you ever buy me something like that, I'm returning it the next day." She liked things that were understated, elegant, but not flashy. Eventually, we ended up wandering into a small antique shop downtown while we were out one afternoon. The place sold old furniture, vintage watches, dusty books, and random pieces of jewelry. It wasn't even our original plan to go ring shopping that day. We wanted an old teapot for decoration, but sometimes those unplanned moments end up being the most memorable. That's where she found the ring. It was sitting in a small velvet tray behind a glass case, a simple vintage band with a modest diamond set in the center. Nothing huge or attention-grabbing, but it had this timeless look that immediately stood out. The owner of the shop told us it was probably from the 1940s or early 1950s. The moment she saw it, she smiled in this quiet way she had and said, "This is the one." No hesitation, no comparing it to other rings, she just knew. After she passed away, I kept the ring in a small wooden box on my desk at home. I don't constantly take it out or stare at it or anything like that, but sometimes if I'm having a particularly rough day, I will open the box, hold it for a moment. It reminds me of the life we built together, the little routines we had, the random conversations late at night about absolutely nothing. It's a small object, but it carries a lot of memories with it. My younger sister Emily is 29, and she's getting married later this year. We've always had a pretty normal sibling relationship. We're not the type who talk every single day, but we've always gotten along well enough. Emily has been deep in wedding planning for months now. Anyone who has ever planned a wedding knows how intense that process can be. Every detail becomes its own decision, and apparently there are about 1,000 more details than anyone expects going into it. A few weeks ago, she came over to my place for dinner. It had been a while since we'd hung out, one-on-one, so it was nice catching up. Most of the conversation naturally revolved around the wedding, venues, catering options, seating arrangements, the color scheme for the decorations, and all the other things that apparently require careful planning. At one point, the topic shifted toward family traditions. Emily started talking about how she always liked the idea of heirlooms being passed down through generations. She said she thought it was really romantic when people proposed using rings that belonged to their grandparents or great-grandparents. That's when I casually mentioned my wife's ring. It wasn't some emotional moment or anything like that. I just mentioned that I still had it and kept it in a small box on my desk. Emily immediately asked if she could see it. I didn't really think much of it, so I got up, grabbed the wooden box, and brought it back to the table. When she saw the ring, she stared at it for a few seconds before saying, "Wow, this is actually really beautiful." She asked where we got it, so I told her the story about the antique shop. She held the ring carefully in her hand and looked at it from different angles. Then she said something like, "Your wife had really good taste." I nodded and told her that she definitely did. After another moment, she handed the ring back, and we moved on to talking about other things. At least I thought we had moved on. A few days later, Emily called me. At first, the conversation was completely normal. She was talking about a caterer she was considering and complaining about how expensive wedding photographers had become. Then there was a pause in the conversation. She said she wanted to ask me something, but she wasn't sure how I would feel about it. I told her she could just ask. That's when she brought up the ring again. She said she had been thinking about it since she saw it at my place and wanted to know if I would consider letting her use it for her wedding. At first I assumed she meant borrowing it for the ceremony, like a something borrowed type of thing. But then she clarified she meant permanently. She wanted it to be her actual wedding ring. I remember sitting there for a moment trying to process what she had just asked. It wasn't something I had ever expected to hear. I told her I wasn't really comfortable with the idea. I explained that the ring meant a lot to me and that it represented my marriage. Even though my wife was gone, it still felt like something deeply connected to our relationship. Emily started explaining her reasoning. She said that since my wife and I never had children, the ring didn't really have anyone to be passed down to someday. But if she wore it, it could become part of her family's story and eventually be passed down to her children. Her exact words were something like, "That way it keeps being part of a loving marriage instead of just sitting in a box forever." I understood the logic behind what she was saying, but emotionally it didn't sit right with me. I told her that I appreciated the sentiment, but the ring wasn't just a piece of jewelry to me. It was one of the few physical things that still felt connected to my wife. Emily got quiet for a moment. Then she said something that made the conversation uncomfortable. She said she thought maybe I was holding onto it in a way that was preventing me from moving forward. That moment irritated me a little. Keeping a ring in a box doesn't mean I'm stuck in grief. It just means I value something that reminds me of someone important. Then she said something else that bothered me even more. She said that my wife would probably want the ring to continue being used for love and marriage instead of sitting unused forever. I told her that neither of us could really speak for what my wife would want. And honestly, the idea of someone else wearing that ring in another marriage feels strange to me. Emily didn't push too hard during that conversation, but she clearly sounded disappointed. I thought that would be the end of it, but over the next weeks, the topic kept coming up again and again, sometimes casually, sometimes more directly. Eventually, my parents became aware of the situation because Emily mentioned it to them. My mom called me one evening and asked if we could talk about it. She said she understood that the ring meant a lot to me, but she also understood why Emily liked the idea of using it for her wedding. My mom has always been someone who values family traditions and sentimental objects being passed down. She told me that heirlooms are meant to be used and shared between generations, not kept hidden away. Her argument was that if Emily wore the ring, it would stay within the family and eventually become something that could be passed down again. My dad was pretty neutral about it. He didn't try to pressure me directly, but he did say that he could see both sides of the situation. The problem is that I've already thought about both sides, and every time I picture someone else wearing that ring, something about it feels wrong. Not in an angry way, not in a jealous way, just wrong. It feels like taking something that belonged to my marriage and giving it an entirely different meaning. Emily called me again a few days later. This time she sounded more emotional. She said she felt hurt, that I wouldn't even consider it. She told me that when she saw the ring, she immediately imagined how meaningful it would be to wear something that had already represented a strong marriage. She said it felt like it would carry a kind of symbolism into her own relationship. I told her I understood the symbolism, but symbolism works both ways. For her, the ring would represent the beginning of a new marriage. For me, it represents a marriage that already happened. Those two meanings don't really coexist very well. Emily said she felt like I was choosing an object over my sister's happiness. That comment honestly hurt a little, because from my perspective, that's not what I'm doing at all. I'm not trying to hurt or sabotage her wedding. I just feel like some things are too personal to give away. Now there is this strange tension in the family as the wedding gets closer. Nobody's openly fighting or yelling about it, but the subject keeps coming up indirectly. I've started wondering if maybe I'm being overly sentimental. Maybe my mom is right and the ring would be better off continuing to represent love instead of sitting in a box. But every time I imagine the ring on someone else's finger, my gut tells me this isn't right. It's one of the last physical things that still feels tied to my wife. And giving it away feels letting go of something I'm not ready to let go of. And now I'm stuck in this position where my sister feels like I'm denying her something meaningful, and my parents think I might regret holding on to the past too tightly. Meanwhile, from my perspective, I'm simply holding on to something that reminds me of the person I spent over a decade of my life with. And I don't think that's unreasonable. But at this point, I genuinely don't know anymore. Am I the a-hole for refusing to give my sister my late wife's wedding ring? Well, first of all, of course not. You're not the a-hole. I'm actually surprised your sister is pushing it that far. Not everything can be shared. Some things, they are just simply priceless. They are not up for debate. They remind us of certain people. They remind us of certain events, certain memories that we love the most. Here's the thing. If your sister wants something like it, like exactly like it, I'm pretty sure there are jewelers who specialize in custom-made rings. They can make her a replica of it. Because if I understood the story, at the beginning of the story, you said that your sister was, planning and talking all about the details about the wedding, and she was even talking about catering services, so that's pretty advanced stuff. Didn't her fiance or husband buy her a ring? Since she's so deep into it? Unless she was already planning to get your wife's ring from the beginning, and this whole theatrical thing is just for show. That's what I think. You're not the a-hole, brother. You just have to be more direct that you simply want to hold on to your late wife's ring. It has absolutely nothing to do with grief. It has nothing to do with you being stuck. You simply want to have the ring. This is your right, for heaven's sake. Why the hell are we even having a conversation about this? I will never ever share anything that valuable with anyone. I don't care. It could be my daughter. I'm not sharing that ring. Damn. Story number 2. Am I the a-hole for telling my husband that I don't want clutter and junk in our house? My husband 38M and I 41F have been married for nearly 20 years. As our careers progressed, we eventually moved into a beautiful lakeside property. But over the last 5 years, a shadow has grown over our home. My husband has developed an obsession with collecting vintage electronics and hardware parts. He insists they are for future projects, but they now consume about 75% of our shared home office and the master suite. I literally have to step over circuit boards and tangled wires just to get to my own desk. The rest of the house is spotless. But this tech graveyard is strictly off limits to me. 2 years ago, I staged this intervention. I took over every single household chore, pet care duty for a long weekend, just so he could clear it out without distraction. He actually loved the result, admitting how much lighter he felt, and he even jokingly suggested we make it an annual reset. But when the anniversary of that reset rolled around last year, he completely balked. He claimed that since he spends the most time in the office, I have no right to comment on the mess. I disagreed. I said this is a shared space and the chaos makes it impossible for me to relax. During a week when he was away on a cycling trip, I hit my breaking point. I moved the entire collection into organized, labeled bins in the basement. I didn't throw a single thing away without his eyes on it. But I forced the sorting process to happen. When he got home, he was livid, but we eventually sat down and cleared out the literal junk while keeping the gems. This year I have set a hard boundary. October the 1st is now our cleaning day ritual. I told him that if the shared spaces are not clear by then, I'm moving the items myself. He says I'm being like a supervisor in our marriage, and that I'm overstepping his autonomy as an adult. I feel that asking for pretty much 364 days of clutter in exchange for just 1 day of a clean room is more than fair trade. Am I the a-hole for insisting our room gets cleaned once a year at least? Okay. I think there is a bigger issue than the cluttered shared office. So there's a well-documented psychological condition known as hoarding disorder. I think your husband might have that. I'm not sure, but everything points towards it. In my personal experience, people who have hoarding disorder, they are usually born into poverty, they are born into scarcity, maybe low-class family. But then at a later stage in their lives, they become financially successful, financially stable. They have a beautiful house, they have stable income, stable jobs. And the reasoning behind hoarding is this sort of innate feeling that one day, and that day is coming, that one day they're going back to poverty all over again. And their brains are literally controlling their thoughts and telling them to hoard as many things as possible, so that at least you have something to sell or something to use when things go belly up, which is basically like a safety net. I wouldn't necessarily say you're the a-hole here, just for the record, But as long as he's reasonable, which in this story I feel he's quite reasonable, since the first time he commended your efforts, or he commended the fact that everything is clean now, everything is light, which is a good sign. So I feel he's quite reasonable. Here's the thing. In this life, some of us have issues like these. Now, while we can work on these issues to reduce their severity, they are always going to be there. They're always going to stay there. So the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to understand your husband's feeling and try to maintain a clean house while giving him some space with, some casual guidance here and there. I don't like only giving the verdict here about these am I the a-hole story or am I in the wrong, because I just feel it really serves no purpose. Like, okay, I can say you're not the a-hole, give you a few words and move on. But I want to give you something actual, something that you could use. Because I feel this is the point of these stories, but unfortunately, the majority of people, they just want to judge. They just want to say, yeah, you're the a-hole, no, you're not, you both are. Stuff like that. Which is one of the reasons why I'm making these videos. Story number 3. Am I the a-hole for deciding I cannot stay any longer taking care of my sister while she's hospitalized? I, 31M, have been living out of a suitcase for 10 weeks now, sitting by my sister's 46F hospital bed. 4 months ago, my sister suffered a car accident that caused a bleeding in her brain and severe neurological complication that nearly took her life. She was in a medically induced coma for over a month, and the uncertainty was agonizing. Thankfully, she pulled through, but the recovery ahead is a mountain. She has lost almost all her motor function and is facing at least a year of intensive rehabilitation just to walk again. Since she regained consciousness 2 months ago, the dynamic has become toxic. Because she's completely dependent on me and our father, she has become incredibly demanding and frankly, quite cruel. I spend 14 hours a day in that sterile room because she panics if she's alone, and my father covers the night shift. I'm exhausted. I have reached out to our 2 other brothers multiple times, begging them to take a shift so I can breathe. I don't want them to stay there forever, just give me some time to breathe. But they always have an excuse. My sister is frustrated, hungry, and lashing out at the only people who are actually showing up for her. I try to be empathetic. She's on a restricted liquid diet and has lost a significant amount of weight. But being her verbal punching bag for half a day is draining my soul. I'm ready to go back to my life. I moved from Chicago to Florida to be here, and I haven't seen my fiance or my dog in months. My job is calling and my mental health is in the gutter. My sister is stable now. She isn't going to die. She's just going to have a long road to recovery. My family is already guilt-tripping me, saying I'm abandoning her, but I feel like I have given everything I have left to give. Am I the asshole for wanting to go home after 2 months of this? No. Of course not. You did your job at staying by her side for 2 months. Every one of us has his breaking point. You cannot force yourself to drain your body, to drain your soul until you go crazy, until you go dysfunctional. Well, in my opinion, the biggest a-holes in this story here are your family members, your brothers, saying you're abandoning her and they're trying to guilt trip you. Listen, if they are that morally superior and think you should stay with her for months and months without a single break, here's my advice to you. Send them the address of the hospital, send them the room number, let them practice their moral superiority there. It makes absolutely no sense. But also, on the other hand, I don't think you should abandon her completely. I understand being burned out. Your eyes feel like they're literally full of sand and they feel red. You can feel the color of your eyes, which is like a crazy sign of being burnt out. You feel as if there's a physical weight pushing you down. It is very exhausting. But abandoning her completely is something I wouldn't really consider. I'm pretty sure there are some relatives, maybe distant relatives, maybe friends, maybe her friends, that they can take shifts during these hard times of her life. You see, ill people perceive things differently than healthy people. which really reminds me of. So I was doing my gynecology and obstetrics bedside practice or bedside rotations about a year ago. And I was taking history from this woman, okay, who was very ill-mannered, passive-aggressive with me. Like, passive-aggressive is probably an understatement. She was actively aggressive with me. I had to put up with it. I had to remain polite and professional. Only because eventually I figured out she is admitted as a case of threatened abortion. And after I took the history from that patient, I went to my supervising doctor and asked him, and he basically said, yeah, she's admitted as a case of threatened abortion. She has had 4 abortions in the last 6 years. In my mind, she's responding that way because of the emotional, because of the psychological pain, the physical pain as well, of losing another child. Well, obviously, in your case, you didn't just stay with her for 20 minutes only, but I'm just trying to shed the light on the difference between healthy people and ill people or sick people and how they basically interact with others. Last thing to say, I wish a fast recovery to your sister and nothing but health and success to both of you. You are an incredibly kind soul for staying 2 months in the hospital. Most people that I know would break down in just a couple of days. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my wife her cooking is bad? I have been married to my wife for 5 years. She tries really hard and she's good. The problem is her food isn't that delicious. It's always dry or just super bland. Meat is dry, vegetables are a mush, and I have quietly eaten it this way since. I had no problem at first, no dreams for a better quality. I made peace with it. Although sometimes I suggest we eat outside or get Uber Eats, she just kind of gets upset and feels like I don't appreciate her efforts. So I eat it and say, thank you. I work long hours and I'm barely home to help her with the cooking. Last week she made a new recipe, chicken with some sauce. The chicken was so dry I could barely chew it, and the sauce tastes like water with a teaspoon of sauce. I ate what I could and then she asked how it was, and I said it was fine like always. This time she wasn't satisfied at all. She said she spends hours cooking and I never really compliment her. She said that in tears. She said she feels like I hate her food. I didn't know what to say, so I told her the truth. I said the chicken was dry and the sauce needed to be an actual sauce. I said I love her, but cooking isn't her strongest skill. She got quiet and went to bed early. The next day, she didn't make dinner. She ordered pizza and she barely talked to me. It's been a week and she hasn't cooked since. She buys takeout or makes sandwiches. She told her sister what I said, and her sister called me to talk about her disappointment. She suggested I cook with her to teach her how I like my food. Yes, that is a good point. She suggested I cook with her to teach her how I like my food. I agreed, but telling her the truth was first. You can't teach someone if they don't know they lack knowledge. I feel bad she's upset, but I was honest because she pushed me. I didn't mean to hurt her feelings. I just wanted to stop pretending forever. Am I the a-hole? Yeah. In my book, you kinda are. Listen, man. Cooking is a completely teachable skill. Obviously, not everyone is gonna have the same passion as Gordon Ramsay, but it's a 100% teachable skill. You could have fixed this whole situation by being very considerate of your wife's feelings, yet being very direct and specific. I'll give you an example, and this is something that her sister brought up. If my wife was bad at cooking, God forbid, but if That's a big if. And I found out the day I tasted her food, like the first day she ever cooked something to me. Let's have some role play session here. It's been a long time since I acted, since I had a proper role play. Okay, action. Darling, first of all, I love how you're passionate about making food. And I appreciate that. I appreciate that you're taking time and effort to do it for me. Do you want to hear a story? A very beautiful, very quick story. A story that my dad told me. He said that my mom never really cooked this well at the beginning of his marriage. He said I didn't have the heart to say it to her. My dad loved my mom so much. But eventually, he told her. And they both took cooking classes together, and they dedicated a whole day every week just to learning how to cook together and what their specific food preferences are. To this day, like literally if you go to my parents' house today and they're making steak, my mom always loves to have her steak to be well done. My dad, on the other hand, loves it medium. And my mom, she knows how to cook it for both of them. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, love. Is your food perfect? No, it's not perfect. But I love it because you made it for me. Now, there is definitely some room for improvement. And that's okay. Actually, that's what I would expect. Because we have the rest of our lives to get better at these things. But you have to promise me not to take this as an insult, as a sign of disrespect. Because I would never ever do that to my wife. Do we have a deal, love? Cut. This is how I would handle it. If I was a restaurant, okay, and the food was trash, I would go to whoever the hell works there, the supervisor, the chef, whoever I find there, and I would tell them, guys, your food is trash. I paid money during this inflation. I paid money, so I expect something deliciously edible. Why could I be this direct and tell them that their food is trash? 2 reasons. Reason number 1, I paid money expecting something good. It's called a transactional relationship. I pay money, you give me food. Food should be good, everybody should be happy. The second reason, because to them, to the restaurant, I'm just a customer. There is no moral or emotional obligation between the two of us. With your wife, that is a whole different story, my brother. You could be right, by the way. The chicken could be too hard to chew, the sauce could taste like water, and you could say these things, and they are true, but since there is a moral, emotional obligation between the two of you, and there is no transactional relationship, so you win by proving your point, which is something Jordan Peterson talked about. You can prove your point, but you're gonna wake up tomorrow next to your wife. Good luck, man. Good luck. Next story. Would I be the a-hole for denying belly touches? Okay, this is gonna be interesting. My husband, 26M, and I, 28F, absolutely love feeding our son, kicking and moving around. I'm 33 weeks pregnant, and he is our first. Congratulations. Today we had a friend over. When she left, I told my husband he was kicking while we were talking. He told me I should have said something and let our friend feel him. I said I'm not comfortable with people touching my belly. Makes sense. I sent him a picture of our son bulging out my belly. He told me to post it in the Discord for our friends to see. I repeatedly said no. Last time, our friend saw what I made myself for breakfast. She called me fat and said my babies are going to be fat if I keep eating the way I'm eating. By the way, it was just eggs and toast. I stopped posting food pictures as it became discouraging. He's also repeatedly told me I need to start planning my baby shower before baby arrives, because everyone is going to want to touch my belly. Why the hell is he saying it that way? I said no one can touch my belly, then he told me they would love to feel the kicks. Now he's saying the baby shower can be after birth then. I agreed, and then he finished the convo with, so all the girls can have a chance to meet him and hold him. I'm not comfortable with people touching me without permission or touching my belly, which is why I'm holding off on the baby shower as long as possible. Would I be the a-hole if I were to have that baby shower and refuse anyone touching my belly, or deny everyone holding my son when he's born? Thinking of having a shower after he's born, but leave him with my husband as his immune system will be new, and some people I know have been sick quite frequently. Yes, that is a very good point. I'm just uncomfortable with people touching me without permission. And if I have that baby shower, my husband might tell everyone to feel free to touch my belly as he kicks frequently. I also don't like being the center of attention or lifting my shirt up for all to see. And now I'm feeling pressured and stressed out. Only one I allow to see touch my belly is my husband and doctors. And the doctors have been wonderful, asking before touching me. Would I be the a-hole? Hell no. You're not the a-hole at all. You're not even remotely the a-hole. These are called personal boundaries, physical boundaries. To be honest, the way you said your husband is talking about touching your belly and posting pictures, I'm getting really weird vibes from your husband's insistence on people touching your belly. Maybe I'm just old school, but yeah, there is definitely some weird vibes going on here. You should definitely forbid anyone from touching your newborn baby. When babies are born, just like you said, their immune system is new. They are almost completely sterile. Their immune system doesn't know anything about the dirtiness of humans. Let me tell you something. There are some pretty nasty humans in this world. They might look clean, use perfumes, put makeup on, but they are super dirty. Your child could catch a nasty rotavirus infection. So rotavirus is something we adults had probably had in our childhood maybe a gazillion times. So our immune system is pretty well adapted to it. A few weeks or a few days old baby, his immune system is not adapted to it. So all it takes is a kiss or maybe a hug from someone who could be a silent carrier, which means there are no symptoms. Symptoms are not obvious, at least. And your baby is going to be in so much pain and discomfort for days, if not weeks. Oh, and speaking about kissing, they could give him a yeast infection if some of them has some nasty dental hygiene. Candida albicans infection is pretty silent in adults because their immune system, like I said, has been adapted to it, but it wreaks havoc in newborns. My advice, my take, my feedback, set your boundaries. Do not let people touch your belly if you don't want to. Do not let them hold or kiss your baby at all. Maybe put signs, put posters, no kissing, no touching, or just don't throw that party. Your husband should be on your side so that the guests would understand that this is more of a boundary that you two are setting rather than a unilateral hate or unilateral disgust you have towards your guest. Oh, and another thing I remembered about the pictures, the eggs and toast. That friend that said you're gonna be fat and your child is gonna be fat, cut that friend from your life completely. I don't care if he's a relative or not, or if she's a relative or not. Just because someone is labeling themselves as your friend doesn't mean she's labeling you as a friend. Just because, we're friends, stuff like that. If she says a comment like that, she's clearly not your friend. Her comment basically proves my point. And with that being said, I hope you had a great time. I hope you learned something new. Take care. Good night. Oh, I don't like saying this, but I feel I have to. If you haven't subscribed yet, and you like these videos and you want to see more of them, you can subscribe. If you don't like these videos and you don't want to see them, you don't have to subscribe. Take care. Good night.